Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Rob Simonds. I'm the president of the Harvard Club of Seattle, and I'm joined tonight by Kristin Lee, a violinist that I admired tremendously. And she is the artistic director and co-founder of Emerald City Music. Even though she's based in New York City, she is the artistic director of a wonderful Seattle-based organization. And we're going to go hear a concert of theirs on May 15th, featuring the music of and performances by the Harvard Professor, MacArthur Genius Award winner, and just overall amazing musician Vijay Iyer. So welcome, Kristin.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Kristin, let's start by talking about how this concert features the music of Vijay Iyer. What might audiences expect when they come to ECM in this concert in particular?
I think it's important to note that this is going to be our season finale concert. So we wanted to do things that are extremely special. And it's also because this is our 10th anniversary. So the season finale to a sort of a benchmark year, we wanted to do something very special. And so we were extremely thrilled and honored to welcome Vijay Iyer to our stage. Vijay Iyer, just on a very personal note, has been a musical hero. I've always loved everything that he's created, but also the way he performs. Just as an artist overall, just a true citizen of music in all ways. And I think who he is as an artist is really sort of the goal and the mission to Emerald City Music. Our organization is really about creating very accessible environment for people to just enjoy good music in a very intimate setting.
Kristin, as a classical musician, what have you learned from playing his music?
What I find extremely unique about Vijay's music and just himself is the fact that he's very keen on expressing what humanity really embodies through his language of music. I know that we often say this and we say the music is a universal language, and a lot of times I think music is sort of an outlet, and it's a outcry of personal emotions through the music. I don't think Vijay is personally like that. What I love about what Vijay does is the fact that he uses the ideas that everyone can really relate to,
Mhm.
and his musical language actually brings more complexity to those ideas. So when you listen to his music, it creates you to be more challenged in a way, and maybe search for more depth to the different meanings. So I wouldn't necessarily say Vijay creates like this emotional outcry when you listen to it, but I think he always makes you think a lot more after you listen to his music.
I
So the
like the
intellectual aspect is really special, I think.
I like the word that you talked about, embodied. My last performance job was in the Rochester Philharmonic, and Vijay's from Rochester,
Right.
and we played a bunch of his music, particularly during the pandemic. A lot of the chamber music,
Mhm.
and the rhythm, like the rhythmic quality of it, was really unique. I mean, it was actually like stomping and physicality to it that was a little different than your normal contemporary classical musical fare. I wonder if you could talk about like maybe what traditions his music is in.
Well, I mean, having worked with Vijay before and also having listened to him speak a lot about music, I think his idea is that there is no one kind of music.
Mhm.
I think he really does not believe in the idea of genres. So I know that I made the mistake once to like ask him about what form of music is it, jazz, and I think it was not the right question. Let's just put it that way. And I know that he really embodies the word like we are the creators of music. We're the music creators. Whether you are a composer, whether you are a performer. And so I love that so much because it's basic. His idea and his philosophy really is to embody everyday human experiences, and take inspiration from everything and be creators. So everything that we're creating is something that is new. I don't think it's really belonging to anything, but as a result, we all belong together.
And I think that would probably dovetail pretty well with your series. I mean, Emerald City Music is unlike a lot of chamber music series across the country. It's not one kind of music. And there's an eclecticism it even sounds trite to even say it's eclectic because it's so built into the DNA. I wonder if you could tell us more about ECM and your connections to Seattle and Olympia.
Sure. So Emerald City Music started 10 years ago, and I can't believe it that it's been a whole decade. And I started Emerald City Music because I was actually approached by my co-founder, Andrew Goldstein, who now lives in South Bend, Indiana, and raising a big family. But he and I met at a different festival called Music at Menlo out in Menlo Park, Atherton area in California. And he was working as an administrator, and I was performing and teaching. And Andrew was actually moving out to Seattle to be closer to his wife's family. And I guess he was working for the Seattle Opera. And I guess his itch for wanting to have chamber music back in his life was something that wouldn't go away. So he actually reached out to me and see if I wanted to join him. The whole vision and the idea to Emerald City Music was the fact that we started chatting about 12 years ago, and as we all know, that was right around the time when Amazon was just kind of taking over the whole city. I think they were hiring like thousands of employees every month, and so especially in South Lake Union, that was what was happening. And as two young people in our 20s who loved classical music and loved the chamber music experience, we wanted to take that as an opportunity and create a concert series that would encourage people of our demographic to really come to classical music concerts too. It was kind of like in a way, slightly rebellious way of like trying to start something, because we were thinking, hey, we love classical music, but how come we don't see them a whole lot? And why is there this sort of concept and this stereotype that, young people don't like classical music? That's not true. So let's prove them wrong. That was sort of the idea. Obviously, at this point, we've embraced a lot of these initial ideas, but we really embrace everybody. I mean, it's no longer about certain age group or demographic anymore, obviously. But what we did keep and maintain and sustain into our organization's model was to create an experience that would be very intimate, very casual, try to avoid creating any kind of a stage to the artist between the artist and the audience, so that everyone feels very human and close up. To make it more interactive, so that the audience is very much part of the concert experience. The exchange of the concert experience just isn't one direction, but it's both ways. And then I guess programming is something that is very unique to us, because similar to what Vijay does, we really believe that there's no reason to really segregate music. I think it's really important to embody good music and celebrate what's good, and experience it in one place. So that is really our goal.
Can you tell me more about what it was you were seeking creatively, in the sense of taking over a leadership role and a leadership role at the founding stage of an organization? And I ask because all the things you described, I think a lot of things that musicians are seeking, and you can achieve that to some degree as a performer. What are the things that you can do that as a director that you couldn't do as a performer?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, it's interesting because I think my vision and mission for Emerald City Music has informed me and myself as a performer a lot, actually. Taking on this role as a founding director was something in a way that kind of fell in my lap. I mean, I was young enough to just jump and go for it. I said, why not? Let's try it. I didn't realize how much work it'll be, but I just took the risk, and I'm still here. What is unique about being in this directorial role versus being a performer to achieve these same goals is that because I'm always returning to the same place when it comes to being a presenter, I have this opportunity to be able to create a base and a community where I can return to these groups and these people. So I can really have these relationships that I build with them on a very regular basis. And so as a result, I think just those relationships that I build and informing them and educating them to, the vision and the mission to what Emerald City Music stands for, and this idea of just celebrating good music, and creating this culture and this idea around it is what's most thrilling for me as being a director. As a
What do you
performer, as a performer, we're traveling more, so I think it's a little bit less. Um, it's a little more difficult to create that kind of constant, right?
Sure.
But
So putting yourself in the shoes of the people that are, and you obviously still do this yourself, travel around the country, around the world playing. What is it that you think that the performers get from ECM that they don't get when they show up in a different city to play their
oh
show?
yeah, I mean, this has happened almost every season and many concerts every season where because our concerts are so incredibly different, I think in a lot of ways, I think it's more uncomfortable actually for a lot of the musicians because our room isn't necessarily a concert hall. It has a little bit more of this black box vibe or like a jazz club vibe, I guess if you
Mhm.
want to call it. And so the acoustics aren't necessarily built for the best resonance. It's really more about the experience with the audience and sort of that closeness. And I think as classically trained musicians, we're not very used to that
Mhm.
concept. We're very used to walking on stage, doing the thing where we take a bow, play our thing, take another bow, and leave the stage. So I think it actually challenges a lot of the performers who are more from the classically trained world. And part of that really excites me because, ultimately we are musicians that are trying to create music to be sort of this source to connect us from, ourselves to other people. And so, but then weirdly enough, we're not really comfortable or have been trained to do that
Mhm.
in a much more closer way. And so I think that challenge, I think, really opens a lot of the eyes to a lot of the musicians that come. And it might be a little bit uncomfortable at first, but what isn't uncomfortable when you are trying to evolve and develop something? So I think that's, yeah.
I wonder about in your own artistic leadership and you think in your sense of in how that fits in the whole self as a musician and as an artist. I wonder if you could talk about maybe a moment or a period in your life where you realized that maybe you were better fit for more of the startup side of the presenter world versus being a part of a big presenting institution, like an older institution. Tell me about the maybe the differences of mindset there.
I've always, even from my undergrad years, I've always been just a very curious person. I went to the Juilliard School, and so I went to this very esteemed conservatory where there were set expectations. But I think I was always more drawn to talking to the composers and working with
Mhm.
them, exploring New York City and going downtown to the jazz clubs. And like, I think I was always just so curious about this otherworldly thing that existed in that was coexisting, but I never really got to know. And so I think that sort of says a lot about my personality. I've never found it too interesting to just sort of follow the same path, but I'm such a believer in finding inspiration from people and other things and experiences in life and seeing what can be created through it. And ultimately, that is what embodies the idea of chamber music too, right? Because yes, we have this thing that we are trying to perform. Let's say it's a Beethoven string quartet, but the whole idea behind chamber music is that you have these four individuals that come, have thought through and have lived through the piece, but they bring their own ideas. And so when you have that exchange, you're supposed to create something that is of new and something that creates magic, right? And so I think we are always I think I've always been the type to always crave that,
Mhm.
where how can we work together? How can we take ideas? How can we learn more about the things that we don't know and then follow it to be something new? And I
Mhm.
think that's really why I've loved the work that I've done with Emerald City.
Have you always been drawn to contemporary music, contemporary classical music, but also jazz and other things too? Or was there a point like when you got to college that your world opened up a little bit more being in New York City, or has you always been that way?
Well, I don't think I was ever even like exposed to
Mhm.
contemporary music until I was on my own and in college. And of course, like my first experience with this contemporary music was also through meeting the composers.
Mhm.
So when I was able to put put that into my senses, like, oh my gosh, this person and they're my friend, they wrote this thing and I could actually work with them. And so when that world all came together, it was like an immediate love at first sight. Like I was like, it kind of answered a lot of the questions that I had about music that I couldn't answer for a very long time. Because I knew how to play the violin. I had my very good training. I knew how to play in tune. I played with good sound, but I was like, but that can't be everything to music. There has to be something more. And so when the connections and the collaborations came, that's when I realized, oh, this is what music is about. And a lot of that was through the contemporary music.
Talk to me about how that excitement of expression and finding new things and answering bigger questions. Tell me how that goes through ECM, and maybe how do you feel audiences connect with that kind of question and answer dichotomy?
Well, the concert experience is really, it's not one direction. I think I might have mentioned it earlier, but it's, the concert experience has to be an exchange of the artist to the audience, but also the audience to the artists.
Hmm.
So I think it's really important that the audience is part of the holistic experience of a concert. That's why we want to fill the seats, right? That's why we want the people to clap, and we want that energy to be really felt to the artist. And so I think Emerald City Music's sort of mission and idea is very much about that there is that exchange that is constantly happening. Artists are human. Audience are human. We're the same. We do this thing that we have worked on for a very long time, and we want to share it with everybody. But we want you to love it too and be curious about it. And maybe you could hate it too, and that's okay. But we can have a conversation. So I think it's about this idea of the exchange that really is what we celebrate, and just humanity. About being human. I think that's ultimately what it
What a
is.
great answer. Before we wrap up, Kristen, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the inspiration for the late night series. Now, obviously, we're going to go here. I'm going to go hear the concert at the beginning. We're inviting Harvard folks to come hear the late night session when Vijay plays a solo set. Certainly, everyone's welcome to come to the first part of the concert. But I wonder if you could tell us from a format, programmatic structure. Tell us about how you've decided to divide the night up into two halves.
Yes. So the late night sessions, it's a new initiative. And so our concerts this year have been sort of the pilot year. So we're sort of testing the waters still. But the whole idea came for multiple reasons. One, it's about the audience building. We really wanted to sort of tap into a different audience that perhaps likes to come out at a later time than at 7:30 or earlier evening. I've been told that maybe Seattle, it's not maybe the Seattle culture to do super late night things, but maybe this will change that. So who knows? We'll see. Second, so our main stage concerts are very curated and the programs are set. And so we really take a lot of time. I take a lot of time to build our season and to really curate every program. This is really about the artist themselves, and it's really a carte blanche. We want it to be a blank canvas for the artist to do what they want, what they believe, and it has to be their music that they really celebrate. And so it's really about it. We wanted to create this platform for the artists to be experimental, to maybe push the boundaries a little bit and try something out that they haven't tried out before. So it's really a platform for the artists to do that. So I hope that Vijay is going to do that too. And thirdly, which is something that we're going to implement more from next season. We want this platform to be more celebratory of the local scene. We really want it to be about the local artists that are doing a lot of experimental things and creative things. This season, of course, when we have someone like Vijay Iyer, we can't say no to bringing him on because he's the most incredible, beautiful, and creative genius. And so we had to give him that platform. But I think down the road, the goal is to really make it a platform featuring more of the local scene as well.
All right, Kristen, thanks very much. So again, on May 15th, the Harvard Club of Seattle is taking members to hear Vijay Iyer's late night performance starting at 10 p.m. But there is also the option to go hear the East Coast Chamber Orchestra perform music at 7:30 that night. Also, the concert is celebrating the work of our member, Nancy Connery, who's a founding board member of ECM as well. So there's a lot of Harvard connections that night. And I also want to remind everybody that on May 7th, our annual meeting with Judge John Ehrlich. So get your tickets for that. So thank you again, Kristen. It was lovely talking to you. We will see you soon. We'll see you next month at the concert.
Thank you so much.